given the title Vienna units. Soviet government had a medal for the seizing of Vienna. There are 217 monuments and military burials in Austria. Under some treaties, Austria undertook to respect, preserve, and maintain the tombs of servicemen that fell in its territory. Every year, Russian diplomatic missions in Austria have memorial events that seek to preserve historical memory on the feet of Soviet soldiers. When the Russian delegation headed by Minister Lavrov came to Vienna, the Russian minister usually laid flowers to this monument. And a few important humanitarian points. On the 8th of April, the official website, Global Fact-Checking Network, was launched. We will definitely publish a link to this website. This is a global online platform that is accessible to all users. It brings together experts that debunk fake news. It is an information portal that accumulates topical research and debunking and investigation. In Moscow, there was a dialogue of regions. It was supported by the Foreign Ministry of Russia. It brought together over 1,000 of Russians and other participants from 60 countries of the world. The participants undertook the responsible fact-checking principles, and this is a global initiative that followed the endless flow of fake news and smear campaigns promoted by the West. The biased pseudo fact-checking activities. The forum saw the signing of a memorandum on establishing of the association, and it was supported by the TASS Information Agency. And congratulations to all of you on the results. We see this outcome, and there is a website in English, French, and Russians, and the first investigations that are already published. For instance, on a new wave of deepfakes, high-profile materials were published, namely on something that has been closed recently, the Voice of America. There are voices calling to save this voice of propaganda, and we provide multiple examples of how this misleading entity was used, how it used fake news and fake toolbox that we have repeatedly mentioned, and now it is confirmed by American investigations. I highly recommend you to study it. We will publish the link. The goal of fact-checking analysis is to raise awareness about responsible contact with information, and any user might note that the key place in practical terms, in conceptual terms, is reserved to the code of responsible fact-checking. You can study it even now. All the links will be accessible in the text of the briefing. You can join the association using a link. Currently, the association comprises over 30 foreign journalists and investigators from 30 countries: Australia, Brazil, Spain, Nigeria, Pakistan, Indonesia, Singapore, and other countries. And certainly the association seeks to have an open dialogue with its users at the platform. And one of the American platforms is social networks. Any one of you could join the platform, could verify whether it's accurate. The work is ongoing not only website but also in social networks. I'm positive that this initiative will be developed and will be supported by all responsible users of the information process, primarily from countries of the global majority. Today, more than ever, a constructive approach is relevant. It is based on facts and responsible contact with regard to information. I wish the association every success. It is a hard job, but it is very relevant and important. Interestingly enough, in mid-20th century, in the US, the number of journalists and investigative journalists started to be perceived by ruling elites as threatening. They coined a term, conspiracy theorists, and they wanted to marginalize them.
For those who are true investigators, there are special platforms for communication in order for them to implement what they consider the deed of their life. In March 2024, on the federal territory called Syria, there was the World Youth Festival held. More than 20,000 delegates from 190 countries of the world participated in it. And we could see the progress of forming a proactive international youth movement that advocates just world order development of equal international cooperation based on mutually respectful partnership. The priorities of the Directorate of the World Youth Festival after the festival are the expansion and strengthening of international youth community, preserving the legacy of the festival, as well as the support of implementing initiative of Russian and foreign citizens, as well as the organizations that are developing international youth cooperation. In order to present cutting-edge work of Russian youth ecosystem, there are several events that are being planned for 14th, 18th of April in the UN headquarters in New York. On the 17th of April, on the platform of the UN General Staff, in the context of the Economic and Social Council Youth Forum, the session called Russia is the Showcase of Leading Youth Work Standards is going to be held. The best practices will be presented by the Directorate of the World Youth Festival, Rosmolodozh, Russian Foreign Ministry, Russian community called Znania, the Ministry of Science and Higher Education of Russia, the Chamber of Young Legislators, and the Russian delegation is going to include representatives of the federal organs of executive authorities, heads and members of civil society organizations and platforms, representatives of scientific and student communities, international associations, around 30 people. Since 14 till 18 April, in the context of this youth forum of the Economic and Social Council of the UN, there's also going to be an exhibition held. It is called At the Heart of the Arctic Circle. This exposition is organized by the Directorate of the World Youth Forum with the support of Nuclear Energy Corporation, Rosatom, with the support of our ministry and our permanent mission in New York. And it will be dedicated to the 80 years of nuclear industry in Russia. And I'm ready to answer your questions. Международная жизнь, international life, you are here. And do you have any questions? Yes, we have a question, but you have already answered it in the first part. On the weekend, there was a Chief of Staff meeting. Big Asia, are you here? Yes, we're here. We have one question. At the end of March in Tokyo, there was a trilateral meeting of the meetings of the Japan, China, and South Korea, and Peking and Seoul are going to renew their negotiations on the trilateral trade zone that stopped 6 years ago. What are our assessments about the prospects of strengthening trade and economic cooperation between three states, given the trade and economic pressure of the U.S.? Russia is not part of this dialogue, not part of this trilateral dialogue. That is why we cannot give any assessments of the prospects of this format in the trade and economy sphere. especially speaking about the trilateral free trade zone. Of course, we welcome all the efforts that enforce stability and economic growth and prosperity in Northeast Asia. And all of this can be ensured only through a wide inclusion of all the countries of the region into this dialogue on an equal footing without any division lines. Without any recommendations from outside the region how this region should live. If this is the work that is being done there, then we welcome such efforts. But once again, we cannot give an assessment, any evaluation, because we are not part of this format. They have their own agenda, and it is unacceptable for us to give any evaluation. Xinhua, are you here? Yes, we're here. Hello, Ms. Zaharova. We're glad to welcome you today. We have the next question. Recently, the U.S. introduced the so-called mirror tariffs for all their partners, introducing them against more than 180 countries and regions of the world, including some economies that are recognized by the UN as the less developed and even uninhabited islands where only seals and penguins live. WTO forecasts that such actions of the US could lead to the reduction of the volume of the world trade of products in this year by 1%. How can you comment on that? According to you, what are the principles? What is the spirit that should we follow in order to ensure healthy development of the world trade and global economy? Well, I would like to proceed from your own question and to ask another one. Another question. Do not consider me being rude, but I would like to ask everyone who is now commenting without full understanding, commenting the introduction of tariffs against uninhabited islands where only seals and penguins live. Where were you before all these decades when the US was treating this way the countries where people live? They were treating these countries and places as places where only seals and penguins live. Many representatives of the U.S. elites treat seals and penguins, treat people as if they were seals and penguins, introducing this illegitimate, illegal, sometimes even criminal sanctions, starting trade wars. I can speak a lot about the measures that were taken against our country. I can speak even more about the measures against Cuba. The period was longer, of course. I can speak about sophisticated measures taken against China. But I would like to remind today about the horrible measures against Syria. Because of the Westerners, it was under the fire of an internal standoff fighting international terrorism for many years, and it was suffering an acute lack of medicine, medical equipment during the pandemic, and there were sanctions introduced against the country and against its people, programs created, blockades introduced. That is what we should start with. It's not the time right now to wake up. We should have done it even longer before. The measures were taken by Washington against the EU directly and indirectly, and this resulted in the collapse of the EU economy. Where was the EU at the time? Now they are concerned by the tariffs. But before this, it was Biden who was speaking proudly how he made the Brussels and the EU bureaucracy and the member countries of the EU to introduce sanctions against Russia, understanding that there will be counter-sanctions against the EU introduced by us. And no one wants to remember it. No one wants to pay attention to it, but the countries of the world majority were speaking about this. But many were just turning a blind eye to it. That is why we need to have a wider perspective. It was Hemingway who said that We need to know that the bell tolls for everyone, not only for regions that are very far away, but if it starts tolling, we need to start thinking, because in the future it can affect your own country, your economy. And we have been speaking long about this, and we were warning many countries. Russia is a big exporter and responsible participant of multilateral trade system, and we're interested in honest and open trade relations. Everyone knows very well our position. That is why our country is against any unilateral restrictions in trade as sanctions, illegitimate sanctions, politicized, or the so-called environmental demands, other ways of dishonest competence that are negatively affecting the global trade, and oppose the obligations that were assumed by the countries voluntarily in the context of the relevant structures and organizations. In order to ensure the healthy development of the world economy, we need to work on the basis of the principles of non-discrimination, transparency, and mutual consideration of interests. Media Corporation of China, yes, we're here. You have already answered to our question, but I would like to focus on the measures that are taken by the US against China. I'm speaking about trade wars. The EU threatened that before the 8th of April, China is not going to cancel the 34% increase of tariffs on the American products. On the 9th of April, Washington is going to impose a 50% tariff on Chinese products. The US will stop any negotiations with China and start consultations with other interested states. What can you say about the actions of the US against China and the consequences? Well, the tariff decisions of the President of the US violate the fundamental rule of the WTO, and it has shown that Washington doesn't seem itself binded by the norms of international trade law. The legal procedure of WTO, there's a special legal procedure in this World Trade Organization. It provides for the cases of unilateral tariff increase. But the US decided to start this unilateral tariff protectionism, trying to protect Russian, American companies in order to bring production of the products to their own territory. If we're speaking about the US economy, the internal affairs, speaking about the critical situation in the US, these are their words. They are saying that the country is in a critical situation. Many politicians are speaking about this. They're characterizing the state of the US economy very specifically. They're speaking about the public debt, the loss of the economic growth, and they are trying to do something about this. They're trying to undo what was done during the previous decades by their predecessors. This way, tariffs are used by the White House to make other countries take their conditions. When analysts are evaluating this, they're saying that these are hidden measures of economic pressure. But they are not hidden, actually. And given the tariff war between the US and China, we would like to say that all of these affects the global economy, and it can affect many world processes. We're also concerned by it because we're speaking about the biggest economies of the world, and one of them is the Chinese economy, our trade partner for many years, and we are following the situation. We're going to analyze all the possible consequences and take measures to minimize possible damage for our country. The President of the Russian Federation has taken the course to strengthen strategic interaction with the People's Republic of China, This is part of our concept of foreign policy that was adopted on the 31st of March 2023, and I think that this course concerns includes our strengthening of our cooperation in all these spheres, and it was confirmed many times. Thank you very much. Let's proceed. Rita, are you here? Yes, hello. Our today's question concerns Iranian nuclear program. In Moscow, yesterday there was the meeting of Russia and Iranian representatives, and there was also a meeting between the US and Iran in Oman. In this regard, we would like to ask about the settlement of this problem. What are the specific details of Russia's position in this sphere? What are the specific proposals of Moscow in this regard for the political and diplomatic solution of this problem? You know, our position does its best for making the settlement possible, to reach it through political and diplomatic means. There are many confirmations. I can give you the chronology over the recent months. The 14th of March, Sergei Rybkov participated in the meeting of the vice foreign ministers on the topic of the JCPOA and the interaction. First of all, they were speaking about the situation with the Iranian nuclear program. Well, first of all, I'm speaking about the JCPOA. There is a detailed material about this on our website. As a result of the consultations, a statement was published of this China-Iran-Russia meeting. You can see our approaches there. On the 2nd of April, there was the meeting of the Vice Foreign Minister Sergei Rybkov and the Vice Minister of Iran on political issues. They were speaking about the same problem, as well as the consultations that were held yesterday, on the 8th of April, on the expert level in Moscow. We have a position, but we're also implementing this position in different formats. I'll underscore that our position is consistent. I have mentioned the documents, and they confirm it. Of course, we are tired of the threats against Iran, and it also means that we do not understand why this topic that has already found a diplomatic way out, that is being viewed as a pretext for aggression. We understand that we cannot pave the way to peace with bombings, and there is an issue that is being raised. There is even, we can say, a request to find effective negotiation solutions to move away from this dangerous line and to establish long-term settlement. What is the basis of our approach to this problem? Well, all the ideas against the Iranian nuclear problem should be based on security, on ensuring verification, on the balance of interests, moving step by step, implementing the arrangements, and this way forming trust towards each other. The UN Security Council Resolution 2231 is being violated, and the US and the Europeans show themselves as someone who is not ready and not capable to negotiate, and this should be rectified. Nuclear program of Iran has been verified for 25 years, very painstakingly. This is not their fault. This is that the JCPOA that managed in a very short time managed to solve all the issues, just lost its ability to do that. Tehran cannot be responsible for illegal actions of those who have made erroneous forecasts and undermine the arrangements that was one of the biggest achievements of the international diplomacy and resulted in the reduction of the scale of verification of the IAEA in Iran.
Overall, the way our Western colleagues deal with this issue raises questions as to their genuine intentions. We do hope that the reasonable approach will prevail and they will be able to opt for a constructive discussion on possible modalities of negotiated solutions. We have a framework, including the models that were used during the development of the JCPOA. Russia made a significant contribution at all stages, and that is universally recognized. Today, our country does its best for the settlement to be possible only by means of diplomacy. Thanks a lot. And certainly all the links to the materials that I've mentioned will be published in the text of the briefing. Tavia TV and radio channel. Hello, Madam Zakharova. You have already answered our question in detail. Thank you. Anadolu News Agency. Hello, Madam Zakharova. Anadolu News Agency. We have one question today. Does Sergei Lavrov plan to have contacts at the Antalya diplomatic forum on Ukrainian settlement? Foreign Minister of Ukraine is intending to attend the forum. Will they have a meeting? First, the schedule of meetings of Minister Lavrov is being developed on the sidelines of the Antalya diplomatic forum. Second of all, there will be a number of meetings, that's for sure. Third, it's important to separate these two things. Certainly, Ukrainian file will be discussed at every meeting. Do we plan to have a separate individual meeting solely on this matter? I do not have such information. Did you have any other questions? Will he have a meeting with the foreign minister of Ukraine? We didn't have a request on the Ukrainian side. I can say in preliminary terms that the meeting with the host country is being prepared, namely the head of the foreign minister of Turkey, and a host of heads of foreign ministries of various states, and that will attend this conference. Everything is being just developed and drafted. We will brief you in more detail a little bit later. The Moscow Post. Hello, we have one question today. This topic has been raised in part. How does the decision of the Trump administration to impose tariffs can affect relations with the EU and the CIS? Do your colleagues have preliminary assessments? I believe that it's too early to talk about specifics. In more broad terms, I can say that these developments reaffirmed the need to further develop integration within the EAEU and the CIS. This is a strong message, a signal to step up our cooperation and galvanize our interaction on specific sectors, and will develop specific steps to implement this approach. Thank you. Lenta.ru. Hello, we're here with us, and we have one question. Given tension between the US and Iran, as well as statements by the UN representative Stefan Dujarric on the need for the third party to mediate, can Russia, that previously reaffirmed its readiness to help bring about a solution, could be a mediator? And what specific steps does Russia intend to take to help negotiating process? First, we have repeatedly noted our readiness to provide assistance to resolve the situation that needs to ease tensions. And second of all, we welcome any context that could lead to de-escalation around Iran. Third, I have just listed contexts over the past month or a month and a half, namely our efforts in this area. Thank you. Veryalk. Hello, Madam Zakharova. I have 3 questions today. As far as I know, from the 30th of June, there's a change for the entry to Russia. For members of the EAEU, they will have to file a notice that 72 hours in advance. Doesn't it violate the norms of the EAEU on the free movement of labor? And isn't it a concealed form of visa regime for the EAEU countries? First of all, I would like to note that all measures in migration taken in Russia are aimed at ensuring security and law and order, or to simplify the relevant procedures. Secondly, you have mentioned this experiment, namely the registration of foreign citizens in the common in the United system using a special mobile app. Naturally, we're not talking about introducing a visa regime. As for the details of this experiment, I kindly ask you to ask your question to the Ministry of Interior. If you have any specific question, we would be happy to work with our colleagues. All the initiatives in Russia regarding migration issues are carefully analyzed to see whether they meet the international obligations of our country, including within the EAEU. Thank you. And the second question. Tensions run high on the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. There is misleading information on shellings. Azerbaijan make strikes on the border territories of Armenia. Many experts believe that that is a run-up to a new wave of escalation. Certainly, we follow the situation in the Armenian-Azerbaijan border area. We saw media reports that you've mentioned. We confirm our call to Baku and Yerevan to exercise restraint and to de-escalate the situation, to avoid any actions that could make the matters worse. All the issues should be resolved by peaceful, political, diplomatic means. For our part, we are ready to provide assistance to our partners to overcome contradictions, to finally sign a peace treaty, to unblock transport and economic communications, to delimit border, to address humanitarian issues in line with the trilateral agreements between leaders of Russia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia. Last but not least, Madam Zakharova, a question on Consulate General in Syunik. Do you have any specifics? When will it be opened? We have specifics and details are versatile. I will get back to the timeline. But first of all, I would like to tell you about the general context. We believe that expansion of Russian presence at strategic, importantly, region of the south of Armenia meets long-term interests of Russia and Armenia. Given traditional goals addressed by consular facilities of Russia abroad, this step could give a significant impetus to deepening trade, investment, scientific, educational, cultural, and humanitarian cooperation. It could develop win-win ties of this territory with Russian regions, advancing economic agenda between our countries. In Syunik is especially important within the EAEU that you've mentioned, given the recent ratification by Iran that borders this Armenian region of the free trade agreement with the Union. Hence, this aspect should be taken into account, and this will be a safety net for a dynamic, peaceful, and safe development of the Syunik region. We're happy to note useful efforts of the advanced team of Russian diplomats to bring about conditions for the establishment of the Consulate General. Their versatile efforts in the region is praised by the population. The work of this team and the establishment
подробно обсуждались сторонами, а именно министрами иностранных дел России и Армении 21 января в Москве в ходе консультации заместителя министра России и его армянского коллеги. — 20 марта эта тема поднималась, и мы рассчитываем теперь уже к долгожданным срокам я перехожу, что к маю мы сможем выйти на конкретные договоренности по срокам открытия нашей консульской точки.
Спасибо большое.
Вам спасибо. С нами телеканал Рудав. Так, Рудав не слышу. Вернемся позже. С нами ли автор И?
Здравствуйте, Мария Владимировна.
Да, здравствуйте.
Автор И. У нас к вам сегодня два вопроса. В парламентской ассамблее ОБСЕ отдельные лица прям призывают Россию вернуться, но ставят достаточно ультимативные условия заплатить членские взносы, которые вот Россия не присутствовала со дня начала СВО на Украине. Как вы могли бы прокомментировать, готова ли Россия возобновить участие в работе этой ассамблеи и приемлемы те указанные вот требования?
Ну, я хотела бы обратить ваше внимание, что вопросы участия российской парламентской делегации в работе парламентской же ассамблеи ОБСЕ относятся к компетенции Федерального собрания Российской Федерации. Также напомню, что решение о приостановке участия в парламентской ассамблее ОБСЕ было оформлено совместным заявлением Палат Федерального собрания нашей страны от 3 июля 2024 года. Там полностью и четко обозначены причины подобного решения. Думаю, что ответ на этот вопрос вам стоит поискать в этом заявлении. Ну и тем более это не совсем наша компетенция.
Спасибо большое. И второй вопрос. Дональд Трамп категорически отказывается, как мы знаем, отменять пошлины. Его администрация...
От каких пошлин?
Торговые пошлины, которые он ввел.
Отказывается?
Отказывается говорить о том, отказывается отменять торговые пошлины.
Отменять. Все, я поняла.
Да, а его администрация говорит, отказывается еще говорить о том, что начались паника на фондовых рынках, что началась рецессия. Они тоже говорят, что все в порядке, скоро все это уляжется. И наш вопрос, повлияло ли это на российскую экономику, на российские интересы? И в ближайшей перспективе повлияет ли это и как?
Ну, я уже частично ответила на этот вопрос, что подобные
consistently calling to strict respect of sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of Syria, we have been guided by a principled approach, and we welcome the achieved arrangements to return the northeast Syria to the Syrian state, taking into account legitimate rights and interests of all ethnic and religious groups living in this region. We assume that the fate of the country should be shaped by Syrians within a broad all-national dialogue without any interference from abroad. We believe that the conclusion of this agreement between Syrian authorities and the leadership of the Syrian Democratic Forces is an important step towards rebuilding the unity of Syria and strengthening its security and stability. We understand that ensuring practical implementation of these arrangements would be linked to various problems of various nature, and it would be hard to implement them. To overcome these difficulties, the parties should be constructive and should be ready to have compromises. Hopefully, they will do this.
My second question is that we have observed an initiative aimed at PKK disarmament and resolving Kurdish issue in Turkey. Since Moscow is considered to have good relations with Turkey, have you encouraged them to address these issues? What outcomes do you hope from this initiative to be?
The Republic of Turkey is our important neighbor and partner, as you know. That is why what happens there is of concern to us, and we believe that it is their sovereign affairs. We respect the right of Ankara to shape independently the way they resolve the domestic situation. The Russian position remains unchanged, and it reflects our principled view that we need to build honest bilateral relations. We do hope that Turkish authorities will take efforts that will achieve inter-ethnic accord and will stabilize the security situation both in Turkey and outside Turkey.
This is my last question. Tensions between Iran and US have been intensifying, with Tehran stating that they will not reach any agreement with Washington as long as they threaten military actions in the absence of an agreement. How do you view the situation between them? And from Moscow's perspective, how could this issue to be solved?
I do hope that I have commented on the Iranian nuclear program today repeatedly, and I have commented on the relation between Iran and the international community, the illegitimate pressure exerted upon Iran. I would just add to that first of all, we need to highlight and once again repeat that it is illegitimate and unacceptable for the enemies of Iran to use military means to achieve their goals. Lately, we've heard messages and signals on prospects of diplomatic settlement, and I believe that they should be taken into account. We note that any context that could lead to de-escalation around Iran should be welcomed. As for what specific things Russia does, I've already named them, a number of consultations in bilateral, trilateral format at the level of Deputy Foreign Minister, at the level of experts over the past 6 weeks. Thank you.
For your time. Thanks for your
Спасибо
answers.
большое.
Have a nice day.
Спасибо вам тоже.
Have a nice day, you too. Since there are no further questions, goodbye to you. See you next time. All the best, and I wish you all the best.
Да, вижу.
What about Голос Отечества? Could you please introduce yourself? Голос Отечества, internet media source. I have the following question. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov congratulated the editor-in-chief of RT and Russia Today, Margarita Simonyan, and wished her happy birthday. Russia is quite friendly towards people that had American education. Would it undermine the prosperity and security of Russia in the future? That is quite a provocative question, I should say. Do you think that do you have any doubts regarding the civic position, and professionalism of editor-in-chief of RT? Neither have we.
But there is a threat to national security, and it exists. Why are you asking this question? In what context? Referring to what? She's the editor-in-chief of the Russian TV channel. She's a person that has very bright civil position, and it's her anniversary. She is very, very highly professional and has a very, very well-known civil position. Knowing the context and the history of this TV channel and the editor-in-chief, that is why there was a congratulation on her birthday. How can you link this to national security? Can you explain it to me? You don't have any questions to the editor-in-chief, Margarita Simonyan, so you don't feel any threat. Then why do you link these things when you say yourself that you do not see any connection? She studied abroad in an American program. Maybe something can change, and this is unsafe. I think we have exceeded the limits of the so-called common sense, speaking about all of this. Not regarding the context of this issue, but I think that we should formulate everything that we're speaking about based on the presumption of guilt, facts. You could give some arguments, but the link that you have made is not being confirmed by you. It's absolutely unacceptable, according to me. That is why I don't have any desire to keep talking about this. I didn't stop it right away because I thought maybe I didn't hear it well. maybe there is going to be some explanation, but if you don't going to give me any explanation why you ask such questions, such provocational slogans with a question mark, why are you doing this? Well, I can explain it. There is law 481 fighting against national threat when people were studying abroad. And what it has to do with this situation? I think you have answered your own question. You don't have any questions. And we should have started with this. Thank you very much. Have a good day.